The revolution did not begin with gunfire. It did not begin with banners raised in defiance or chants echoing through the streets. It began in whispers, in the shadows of the grand halls where decisions were made, in the factories where workers labored until their hands bled, in the homes of the forgotten, where the cold seeped into bones that had long given up hope. The city, once a beacon of progress, had become a monument to stagnation. The Council of Probity ruled with an iron grip, promising security in exchange for silence, prosperity for obedience. But beneath the marble streets and the neon glow of government towers, the truth festered. The people were hungry not just for food, but for change. The man had once believed in the system. He had risen through its ranks, donned its colors, spoken its words. He had served with unwavering loyalty, convinced that if he held the line, if he enforced the laws, he could keep the city from descending into chaos. But faith is a fragile thing, and his had begun to crack. It started with a single act of defiance. A group of factory workers tired of starvation wages, of working themselves to death for a system that saw them as nothing more than cogs went on strike. The council responded the way it always did, with force. The soldiers were sent in, orders were given, and what was meant to be a warning turned into a massacre. Blood ran through the gutters, and the city held its breath. That was the first mistake. The second was the response. When the official, his name now whispered among rebels and defectors alike, stood before the council and spoke out against the slaughter, he sealed his fate. He expected resistance. He expected outrage. What he did not expect was silence, the cold indifference of those who had long since lost their humanity. Order must be maintained, they told him. At any cost. That was the moment he knew. He was on the wrong side. He was not alone. Others within the government, within the military, had seen the same rot he had. Some spoke of change from within, but he knew better. The system could not be fixed. It had to be torn down. The third mistake was underestimating the people. The council thought they had crushed the spirit of rebellion with violence. They were wrong. The massacre had not cowed the people, it had ignited them. The whispers grew into voices, the voices into shouts. Weapons were gathered, alliances were forged in the dark corners of the city, and the time for waiting came to an end. And then there was her. The blonde-haired girl who had always believed in him. She had seen the good in him before he had seen it in himself. She had stood by him when he had made his choice, knowing it could mean his end. Now, on the eve of the uprising, as the streets filled with those ready to reclaim their future, she stood by him still.
You know what comes next,
she said, watching him as he adjusted his uniform perhaps for the last time. He exhaled slowly, looking out at the city that would soon be unrecognizable. I do.
You don't have to be the martyr.
He gave her a sad smile. Someone has to be. Outside, the first echoes of the coming storm rumbled through the streets. The revolution had begun. The city trembled with the weight of a history unraveling. Smoke coiled from distant fires, and the night was alive with the hush before the inevitable storm. Soon, the streets would be flooded with those who had been waiting for the signal, for the call to arms, for the moment when the old world would finally collapse. In a dimly lit room high above the unrest, he held her. His uniform, once pristine, was wrinkled from the long hours of speeches, negotiations, and quiet, desperate planning. The insignia on his chest still gleamed under the weak light, a relic of the authority he once represented. But authority had long since lost its grip. She pressed her face into his shoulder, arms wrapped around him as if she could hold time itself in place.
You don't have to stay, you can come with me. We can disappear before it all begins.
His fingers tightened against her back. He wanted nothing more than to say yes, to leave behind the weight of his position, his oaths, the impossible burden of duty. But he had made his choice long before this night. The people need to see me fall, he murmured. They need a symbol, someone to blame, someone to tear down so they can build anew. Tears threatened to spill from her eyes, but she swallowed them.
Then I'll stay with you.
He shook his head, resting his forehead against hers. No. You have to live. You have to see what comes after, even if I can't. You have nothing to atone for, my sins are not your sins. My burdens are not your burdens. A distant explosion rattled the glass. The time was near. She clutched him tighter.
I don't care about the revolution. I care about you.
His throat tightened. And that's why you have to go. For a long moment, there was only silence, the two of them frozen in the fragile sanctuary of their final embrace. Then, with trembling fingers, he pulled away, brushing a strand of blonde hair from her face. "Survive," he said. "For both of us." She nodded, unable to speak. And as the world outside prepared to burn, she turned and walked away, never looking back, because if she did, she would never leave at all.